crisis, nor did it see any higher task than the attainment of happiness on earth. It based modern Western civilization on the road to worship man and his material needs. Now, here's the point. That's not what Schumann, it's not what Adenauer, it's not what the foundation fathers were inspired by at all. And this vision that was articulated by, and he deliberately chose Solzhenitsyn because of his moral stature. He was saying this in the late 70s. He was saying things have changed and we're heading in a bad direction. In the early and mid 1980s, what has this got to do with Europe? Well, Europe held a referendum, didn't it? It held a referendum to introduce a secular constitution. In effect, to crowd out all that Europe had been about, all that had been built on Europe. It's interesting, of course, when they had the referendum and the secular vision had been pushed by France and the Netherlands, they failed. The referendum failed in France and it failed in the Netherlands, and they basically pulled it. But they reintroduced it in the form of the Lisbon Treaty by the back door. We voted against the Lisbon Treaty, but that didn't really matter much because we voted again, didn't we? And we bought into the baubles that were attached in the form of annexes on militarization and recognizing their neutral status. Really, when you look at it now, it was so much sand, and we fell for it. There have been further erosions, we'll call them, of what Europe was about, the macroeconomics of austerity, and I'm going to talk about that briefly, and the unprecedented migration crisis, and the attempt to pass off what they dismissed the European elite as populism, to pass that off as some kind of right-wing reaction when it reflected the pain, the deep-seated pain of what austerity imposed on Europe. At the heart of Europe is a flawed monetary system which imposes unfair adjustment on deficit countries and allows the surplus countries to prosper. The book that Kate very kindly referred to there, and I'm not pushing the book, it's got a great title, and it means every word of it. We call it Troikonomics because the Troika took away not just the economic independence and capability of people, it took their governance. And there's an Irish journalist, Lisa Handler, I quote her in it. She describes what it was like to sit in government buildings and to watch the transfer of power, real power, from our government to the Troika. That was an existential moment. And actually, did I say the book is co-authored with my son, who's a philosopher, Dr. Michael Kinsella. Dr. Morris Kinsella, Dr. Morris is a philosopher, and it was such a pleasure working with him because he specialised in the whole area of autonomy. What is it like to be oneself? And he transposed this to what is it about a country that is special, and how can that feeling of specialness be affirmed? How can we determine our future in a way that reflects who we are and how we can become ourselves and others? Well, it wasn't that way in Ireland. It wasn't that way in Greece. Greece ostensibly left the Troika, or left the bailout a month or two ago. But when you look at the fine detail, when you look at a country that's been in the purgatory of austerity for 8 years and experienced the emigration, the successive cuts in living standards, the inequalities, the feeling of hopelessness. And they're leaving, and you know what? They're leaving with a debt burden nearly as big. They're leaving with a requirement that they generate a positive balance of payments, a fiscal surplus every year, and that they will be evaluated for the next 40 years. I mean, what kind of exit is that? Now, I mention that only because I believe there is greatness in the European vision, but it lost the plot. Somewhere along the way, it lost the plot of what goodness and the Christian virtues that inspired the foundational fathers. People like Adenauer. Adenauer rebuilt Germany. And in rebuilding Germany, he rebuilt Europe. But he was inspired by values that have effectively been discarded, crowded out by the new Europe. Have any of you read the Paris Statement? No, I only ask it. For a second, I thought I was back in UCD. I only ask it because I swear to God, if you're here, you really should read it. It's by 13 European intellectuals and thinkers, people like Roger Scruton from England. And it shows it's pro-Europe in the sense that it says Europe is great, but it's changed. The old Europe, what it calls the old Europe, has been discarded by what it calls a false Europe. A false Europe. And a couple of the things that it says, I think are worth quoting. It says, Europe was our home, but Europe is now going in a radically different direction. It has lost contact with where its values come from. It lauds these values, it says these things are great, but it's lost a sense of where they came from. The false Europe is a dangerous place. We have no business, it seems to me, we who have had so much contact with Europe, being locked into a false Europe. Think about this. The trauma of Brexit should have been the catalyst for reform. Instead, freed for the moment from the threat of populism generated by its own policies, the establishment pulled down the shutters on reform. It's heading in one direction, and that's, in effect, an empire, and beyond that, further supranational enlargement. Think about this, the core responsibility of any sovereign government is to protect the national interest. The essential ethos that lies at the heart of our sovereignty. Patriotism, properly understood, is an expression of respect for the unique national culture, the history, the values and the identity of a nation in its engagement with others. Bear this in mind too, that in what Brexit really means is Ireland, which shared a common stance with the UK on key issues, it's left marginalised, peripheral and dependent. Down the road, let me ask you, who will uphold and advocate Ireland's national interests within the supranational European empire? Whatever the nature of what happens after Brexit, the governance of Europe, and whatever form it takes, really, we all know it, little consideration will be given to Ireland's needs and its capabilities. How could they be? On all issues that matter, the centre will advance its own agenda. Patriotism and values are being homogenised according to the recipe handed down by this across Europe. Amnesia is a terrible thing. It's prudent to remember that in the bailout negotiations, the European Central Bank cut the ground from underneath Ireland when we were at our most vulnerable. The head of mission, the former head of mission, the IMF head of mission, recalls that it was the International Monetary Fund, not Europe, that had advocated against the harshness of the adjustment which the ECB attempted to impose, and the pressure it imposed on Ireland to take and absorb the losses that should have been borne by the bondholders of delinquent banks. The threats of what would happen if Ireland didn't come to heel were precisely that. They were oppressive threats. It's worth going back to the literature just to see their nature and the effect they had. They stopped the Minister of Finance on his way to the Dáil to announce reforms. Now, this is not about refighting old battles. It's not about that. We move on. But we really should learn. And we should learn that in a post-Brexit Europe, it would be unwise to depend upon the establishment to vindicate